Martial arts too, that has half of his mind, I think, BA brothers. We can actually do it to the point where we're brothers and sisters. When advantage Kim pity too. CA is not sad. To CA sooner or later understand your suffering. Vu Van Thong held the prince's hand firmly and said, I hope so. The prince opened his mouth. The sky looks good after all. Looking towards Vu Van Thong said, Okay, 3. I have to go back to the royal city. Help the father handle the dispatch. Let's say goodbye here. Vu Van Thong hurriedly hugged the right to nod his voice. It's hard work and apples die. Already said, take the centaurs in a different direction. Wait until the shadow of your back is gone. The smile on his face disappeared. It shows a little contempt now. Take out a towel. Clean up Vu Van Thong's hands. I hate yelling at this fat shit. It's disgusting. 391 private priests accepted. Not long apart. The prince went straight to a dark alley. Waiting to go deep inside. There were 3 people waiting for him. The prince saw 3 people. I have to go to the temple this time, there's a ceremony. The Prime Minister Sand. 3 Kier people are the sands of the wind. There's Yang Yang in the back. Corners of mouth slightly tucked. The prince laughed softly. The prince. Your Majesty looks at your attitude. It must be very favorable. Quite favorable, but that human attitude is too arrogant. There is a fire in my heart. There's no discharge. A cold voice, the prince said with a deep face. I can't laugh for an hour. Master Feng refused to give the opinion of shaking his head. The phone rings first. Surely this wise young man. I have not tasted 7 failures since I was born. Even if it's impermanent. He also played the grave. It makes the nose disappear. It's normal for him to be a little arrogant. You are so talented. The prince shook his head in disbelief, but... Such an arrogant person. You can actually take your place later. Become a prime minister later. The head of the head. Jia San School Feng confidently confirmed. The world's first steward. Probably the Tai himself. I heard the emperor's decree. What is the steward of the world is not. Prime Minister Cao. Your Majesty, this is paving the way for you. Looking for financial support for the new emperor in the future. Maybe this guy is acting differently from the old man. But there's a similarity. To assume the position of Prime Minister. The Prime Minister said in his heart of understanding. Take a deep breath. The prince nodded. And yet you still scowl tragically. But the temperament of this mortal. The power really can't stand it. Think about inheriting the future. I have to work with this person every day. It really makes people angry. Make fun of looking at him. Master Feng laughed again at this point. Your Highness doesn't have to worry. Maybe you don't have this opportunity. The body suddenly trembled. The prince looked at him in amazement. The whole Bible says, what do you mean? Shaking his head and laughing softly, Jia San Maple to eyes flashed the light. Just say nothing. It is only the Lord's will for you. Hahafam is the king of the throne. They will often do favors to others. Leave it to the new king. But this time His Majesty did not retain power. The reverse god. Choose the Prime Minister first. You know why. Slightly constricted in the eyes, the prince shook his head. On the head looks amazing. Seeing that, the school of sand showed contempt. Keep speaking up. God's will is for the king. There's only one possibility. It's in your three brothers. Your Majesty has not yet decided who will inherit the tradition. Your Majesty considers you a prince, but in the struggle for the throne, there's really no advantage, haha. Why is it so? The whole world trembled. The prince could not help but take 2 steps back. On the head of a cold sweat. Now you understand. Atsao, I urge you to stay close to the earth. I have not yet decided. If your three brothers were all close together, let's see who can coordinate, agree with this future prime minister. He will sit on that seat. Now this future prime minister's idea. To decide destiny, who can become the future king. Of course, if the crown prince and the mortals can't coordinate, give up the throne. Mouth slightly raised, the prince looked as if he was still terrified. Laughing out loud. It's a good place to be. No, he hasn't said it yet. The prince was in a hurry to shout. The prime minister thanks the informant. I understand what you mean. Then we know what to do. Finished talking, he took the 7 lost souls with him. Even the back drenched in cold sweat. I watched the shadow disappear. Jia San Chong Feng nodded with satisfaction. At this point, he had black hair next to him. He asked the prime minister, who really wanted to help this prince win the crown. Help him, yes, his face flashed light. Jia San head cold Feng Hun. Old man, I have no interest in making wedding dresses for others. The old man raised his family so high. I just want to break the balance of the 3 senses. Sitting on the mountain watching the tiger fight the fisherman profitably. But the old man can let him like that. So now we've pulled 7 into this category. So that he can't watch anymore. Haha, he wants to shake the world. Then the old man helped him stir more. Who is the fisherman in the end is not sure. Hear this word. The 2 immediately nodded. They looked at each other towards. Jia Santrong Feng bowed his head and said, Prime Minister Min. Another way to take the 2 princes away. Probably back in the hall again. The people of Long Buddha had been hiding. Also step out. Watch the 2 disappear at the front door. Long Dat Phi suddenly felt unexpected exclamation. Even polytheists like the crown prince. It's also starting to pull up. The state of the empire is not optimistic. Everybody finished listening. He also nodded. They're all heads of a family. It's also a form of training. It's not hard to see the prince's intentions. Most probably the same kind of nod. But not too hot. Even though the world has come to this step. Is taking the initiative? Just use invariant. Nobody can do anything about them. Suddenly right at this moment, state leaders rushed to Zhongbig. The butler brought a card. He glanced back and received the letter in his hand. Look up. The first one was from 2 princes. He laughed for an hour. He sent a prince to a couple of princes. Bikwan tightened you. Look to the worst. To advise. These two princes. Commune mind. I used to like to go back and forth with people. It's just that the AI didn't care about him before. But now he seems to be back and forth with you Mincup. It's probably because of the royal family. Track the butler. Royal affairs best not to attend. To avoid putting fire on people. I am not afraid to light a fire on you. It's just what these two are. Tell the old man to go see him. Even if it's the prince. You also have to take care of yourself. Despise the lips. Most probably right now. And turn the invitation into chalk. See this action of why. They immediately broke into a cold sweat. This butler is really stubborn. It's for this kind of reason to make a decision. At this point he opened the second invitation. The above is written in for words. I think most people look at these for words. This is the third in the four pillars. Selling God of Mystery. I can't believe I didn't have time to visit the mystical family. Stand in the sky. 1,000 years without this. The enemy came back first. This is the most mysterious family in thousands of years of national. A family with a peculiar sense of bravery. Every life will be a blood of God's will. Part of the country. Their eyes are heaven. You can see the destiny that ordinary people don't see, but this man was also emperor every life, to be a high priest. The high priest is now the seventh head of the family. It has the title of selling magic. Think about here. Most probably I can't help but suspect or mutter. I've heard that the occultist hasn't asked that before. Suddenly came looking for me. The police officers stared at the invitation. In bright eyes laughing. This butler is a noble man. If he invites you personally, there must be something important. I want to point people out. Who can go? His eyebrows involuntarily furled. Probably the most bizarre. Take a look at the military. Just looked at everyone. He nodded in surprise and said, "Oh. You guys exist like this. Is he really that trustworthy?" 392 Occult Pattern. Long laughed and nodded. One side of worship, of course. This mysterious muscle can be seen as the variable of the universe. Regardless of the emperor. Jia San Schoolfang, she alone, or the owner of the 7 families. As long as the AI has a place of fascination, it comes to him to inquire. He will also point. Hear this word. I can't help but laugh coldly. This is not a gangster wizard. Love or duplicate Sao. Because of the kind of way he was born, the magician. The world is peaceful. But a fortune teller said it casually. Who's about to be emperor? Not even reactionary to the empire. Explicit taboo station Emperor 7. But the emperor raised them for 1,000 years. The bow is weird. Look at his suspicious face. The owners couldn't help but look at each other laughing. The corners of his mouth slightly cracked, and he said casually, I have also visited before. It's a much more open word. Probably most carefully thought. Consider the sentence again. The surgeon shook his head and laughed out loud. The gypsy wizard. Or so they have to go back and forth. Maybe a word can shake the nation. Such a person the emperor could keep. Ha 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 ha. The butler doesn't know. This place has been very clean. Back and forth with the house are all guests. They don't interact with houses either. Even less involved in court disputes. So it's very neutral. 1,000 years ago, no owner has ever taken a step beyond lead. This is also the 7th most secure place. And it's different from other wizards. Every priest obeys a precept. The great way of heaven and impermanent destiny. The world is changing. To win heaven. Long laughed out loud for an hour. A deep breath of explanation. Eyelids slightly blinking. Most likely, he suddenly laughed. This is not like not saying so. In the end, you have to see yourself. Hear this word. They all looked at each other laughing, right? This is the morality. What he said was only human. Just give people away. It is about whether it can succeed or not. You have to see yourself. This is the most beautiful place in the world. Most likely holding a card in your hand. A slight tremor in the eye flashed through the lens. For a long time, most probably decided to say goodbye to everyone. Towards the high priest's court. Not long after, he went to the big door, and there was a seat above him. Hanging a sign engraved with 4 words Majesty covered High Priest. Slowly nodding to knock on the door. Just a moment after the heavy door opened. The most confident-looking little comedian said respectfully, "I don't know who the teacher is. What is there to do here? I am a foreigner. I heard that the high priest knew the fate of the people. So especially to visit, please teach. Probably the best-looking comedy. I don't know my identity, but still have the right attitude. I can't help but want to investigate one." But the comedian just finished listening. And finally, the 4th guest. All 3 of our hosts have guests today. What can't be served? The 2 of you came back 3 days later to make room for him. Not frown. Most likely, he glanced at his pupils. Silently nodding his head. The family in high position is so close to the people. Even children know how to be polite. It can be seen as a family. Take German clothes. It's really different from the secular wizard. I think this is probably the most aggressive face rubbing. Small comedy dong laughing big. Take out the invitation. Hey haha kid, I'm not poking you anymore. I was actually invited here as an invitation. Pupils see the invitation, eyes light up. Again, he said. Ra is the first world. The Grand Steward appointed by His Majesty. Maybe the teacher came. Not welcome from a distance. I hope the owner of my house has been waiting for a long time to invite me in. He said, "Go ahead and lead the way." Most people will laugh behind their backs. Just a moment later. To people through every little building. We stopped at a tall building. Most likely face up to look. These 10 tall buildings. High enough. And the little boy laughed again. This is the Quangton radio of our private priest. The owner is now in the guest room. Wait a minute, I will announce. Most likely a small nod. Stop walking and watch the little boy leave. A minute later, the worst of the world stood a little upset. Then a scream goes through the ear. Why frown softly? Most people think this sound is a little familiar. Lift your feet, follow the sound. In a moment I went to a closed room. The boy knelt at the door of the room. Dare not to raise your head. Fear of disturbing the owner. Most likely the world finally decided to wait here. Little Kier just looked at him and startled. A small voice called out to Mr. But most likely the human quickly made a silent movement. Let him stop talking. I came in by the door looking through. I want to see the end of it. Is the next day But I just looked at. Probably not without a laugh. Then Ra is the kingdom of heaven and impermanence. This other hour. Hongfu natural resources war thunder and scream loudly. Great priest. God's people have never been wrong before. But this time at Cao is so much different. That's right, we can only calculate the human heart. You can't calculate fate. At this point the old man had great respect for the high priest. But this time, the high priest's mistake made it difficult for the old man to approve. 25 years ago we came here to teach. He said that the great prince in our school has a king. There are signs of growth. The old man sighed with his hands, but now. Slowly nodding, I didn't notice. It's just exclamation, it's true. Your brother is really a general. Long rare. Just through the next 3 lives a generous future. 3 lives of aggressive biting lips. Wasteland says resentment. To ponder a muscular striatum to speak. These 3 lives are a plan that is not easy to reveal. But if you're dead, that's not cool anymore. These 3 lives are the destiny. The death and the crime. So what kind of life is it? The impatient rushed to ask. Slowly shaking his head. My face still keeps a cold voice. It's not in here. You say my son has a life. This is not a 4th life. And then there's the fate of taking his life. The Emperor of Heaven was angry with a loud shout. It's like the old calm. The tent speaks out. Impermanent fate has a record that can be justified. The great way of life. The map can travel countless times. But the order died this time. It's an unexpected thing. Out of real will. Hear this word. The worst almost laughed out loud. The current can be confirmed. So this occultist is a fortune teller. Hongfu Bar Paradise. Is the Supreme Master? He said his death was unintentional. This is about smashing your own high priest sign. 393 You should die soon. The face is not shrinking. Hongfu theme Nu Yen to hands firmly hold the power. Anger wants to hit people. Still holding down screaming. The high priest before, you didn't always say. Life is not unintended. Early in life, everything is a number. Even if there's a deviation, it's just a fork in fate. Weather deviations. It's just a fork in fate. Get lost and sow yourself. Impermanent celestial orbit. God's destiny transports the world. All things cannot escape the dominion of destiny. Like heaven and earth 8 subjects to practitioners and dead people parked in the horoscope. If you enter the birth door, you will live. The entrance is stagnant. Enter the scene, the pre-dawn. But he can walk in 8 subjects. Not escape the fate of the flow. But everything that lives on has a number. Let's take a deep breath. It's hard to explain why someone frowns. Say the same. Some people will not be controlled by heaven. The eyelids should not flutter. The emperor clearly wants to say something. The impermanent leader rushed forward. What you mean is, it is not under the control of heaven. Can't help but be stunned. The kingdom of heaven looks towards the impermanent realm. He doesn't quite understand what this person is talking about. Not accept heaven's destiny to control the delegates. But the devil doesn't want more words. Silent for a long time. Sigh a little later. The words come here. The old man didn't want to say much. The two of you took it off. Yu Hongfu natural gas is stagnant. I want to go crazy in my heart. This old man wants to fire the guests. Not even waiting for him to act. Impermanent leaders rushed forward to prevent. Towards the mystic muscle, the reverend said, "Thank you to the high priest for understanding in your heart." The police came to visit the other day. Leader Xian. Let's just go like that. We don't understand anything yet. The Emperor of Heaven shouted for an hour. My face is full of doubt. The impermanent leader put on his hand to advise the master to go. Great priest, you gave us very clear instructions earlier. Human beings are surely a strange grave. You don't have a bag. What relationship with us? Hongfu natural resources as big as strange eyes. Look at the impermanent. Not very clear. Unusually, he laughed. Lure him out. This is waiting for us to return. I just explained to you. Just open the door. Impermanent leadership with the royal palace of heaven. Want to go out? I am the most confident person standing in front of me. I can't help but be startled. Why are you here? It's sterile, haha. I can't help but laugh for an hour. Probably the most provocative. As you seek the high priest. It's just that we're dealing with each other. Ask the same person if it's a little strange. Nothingness try minor knee. Government priest never participated in the struggle between the powers. No more planning for either side. There are only points for people in the world. Eliminating doubt in the map only. His eyes sniffed softly. The impermanent leader laughed even colder. We both know the situation now. The loss is getting higher. But at the top of the wind. How dare you move us? We only hurt to families. Only outsiders benefit. As wise as you and me. Probably didn't do that kind of brainwashing. Take a look at him. Most likely, he nodded. Yes, but if you understood this before. It is outside the royal palace. Step back. Unconscious body tremors are impermanent. The eyelids trembled slightly to grips tightly to the right. At that time, he was raped by the worst. Can say, this was the greatest insult in his life. Ha ha, Lord, you know that I will not do this. But I'm afraid there's only one reason. I can't help but laugh for an hour, most probably pointing to my heart. Say with contempt, what you are missing is this place. You don't have my power. Say the same, you can only be a mastermind and not a master. Ha ha ha. The laughter of the most ordinary. Transmitted into the ears of impermanence. He couldn't shake, his eyes were red. Clearly, this is the most naked of all. Humiliating him, he had no way of resisting. I can only endure. He bit his teeth and looked at the sky. Take your feet off. Master, let's go. I watched the backs of the two disappear. The most obvious is a smile. Instead, look at the frightened child. Falling on the ground. Laughing, I said, I kid. I want you to see the most evil side of humanity. But short sentences. He could have killed the enemy in an instant. That scares the enemy. Is it really cute? Small comedy, stupid dog. He stared at the most ordinary person and said nothing. Now the high priest finally slowly opened his eyes. He looked at the worst outside the door. Track the butler. Please do not teach my disciples. Please come in. Indifferent shrug. Most likely laughing. Looking at the laughing fellow. Then lift your feet inside. Arbitrarily sit in the chair. Finger tapping on the chair. He calmly said, I don't know what happened to the priest who invited me. Look at him for a long time. Deep-rooted muscle gently nods. It was as the old man thought. The butler is not an ordinary person. It's nonsense if Lao Tzu is an ordinary person. SAO can reach its current status. Why did you personally send me an invitation? I despise the cold for an hour. Most likely, I want to get up and go out. If you have nothing new to fool Lao Tzu. Then the old man died before. And what about the mythical destiny that you said earlier? I'm sorry, Lao Tzu can't believe it or understand it. Don't waste your tongue. But he hasn't left yet. The Lord's words made him stop. You should die soon. Most likely the physical body is not stagnant. Two eyes full of terror. This is the secret in this old man's heart. Maybe one I can see. Maybe the legend is true. The owner of this house. There really is a pair of eyes. They can see through human destiny. Even if you are a saint of the sacred. Even the Supreme Master. I can't really practice magic like that. There really is someone in this world who owns the future. Every South stage has such a strange family that exists. Currently, for sure. These people are the lifeblood of the Holy Family. The most likely thing to do is bite your teeth. Your face is a little heavy. What is the god of the world? Where does the shit come from? Your feet are a little bit tight, and I looked at the worst. My face is full of ignorance. Slowly speak up. The old butler doesn't know what you're talking about. The tribe of Ra has been hiding since ancient times. Sun lamb from the Emperor of Heaven. I have been invited to paint so far. Hear this word. Probably the most doubtful. The family has such a strange ability. I come from such a normal background. Or too long. They've even forgotten their own calendars. I think this is the most likely time to smile. Embarrassed to return to your seat. Smiling face said. The high priest was guilty and expected to forgive. Where were we talking about earlier? Ayata. I haven't talked to people happily in a long time. That's it. Ha ha ha. The face can't help but shiver. I can't even laugh out loud. Track the butler. It's been a long time since we met. Unscrupulous appearance. It can be soft or hard. There was a bit of an old man that year. The great priest. Are you laughing at me or are you laughing at yourself? I can't help but feel the most embarrassed. Laughing and laughing, the high priest sighed. Who has never been a teenager? Just to this age. In this position, the thinking is different from before. So, the old man wanted to talk to the butler. For the world. Adopt 394 again workout schedule. Take a good look at one. Most likely quiet listening. Mystic stripe. Now there's a little sadness continue to speak. Human destiny is related to heaven. Although there are many options. But in general, you can't escape the power of heaven. The old man always believed this. It also relies on ancestral eyes. It's a pretty easy path for people to take. But 8 years ago, something happened. Everything the old man believed in since childhood. It all fell apart again. Unconsciously frown. Probably the most. Look at the short side form of Van mysterious muscle. To ponder a muttered battle. Born into the world of AI without stumbling. Ha ha ha. You thought the old man was under attack. 7 Hope Sow. Maybe a little bit, but more of a surprise. At first I always thought, all life in this world. It's a toy of heaven. You can't escape this law of heaven. You look pale too. That is why God exists in the world. Before the light treatment. Not to compete for profits. But since then, I just found out. Everything is just a matter of course. Heaven has locked us in this fur. That leaves us a window. It's just that we haven't found it yet. And he sighed a little and said, look out for the butler. I'm not interested in the mythical destiny. The old man spoke a little colloquially. Blink your eyes, touch your nose. In the heart of resentment. What is this old man talking about? It's as if you're thinking in your heart. Silently laughing for an hour. I told you 8 years ago. The story of who killed the Demon 7 in the City of Min. It's actually a counter-revolutionary act. He is difficult though. They shouldn't have died so early. In the eyes slightly condensed, the worst in the world. About 8 years ago. It's like the first time you've ever seen the sky. As for the change of fate. Maybe he killed someone. It has something to do with your destiny. Clear doubt in his heart. He laughed for an hour and continued to speak. In fact, the fate of everyone. It's all connected to heaven. The fate of each. Are silently linked together again. Because everyone's decision is different. The road is also a little different. The Devil 7. There was really no way to die. Even if there's a way to die, it's also 25 years after the Empire's collapse. So that's when it came to his death. The old man was immediately stunned. Observing the celestial, I found someone who shouldn't have come back. Live also stirs up the fate of the stars in the sky. But he himself early jumped out of the fate of random chaos. Where he went, everyone's fate changed. The strong become weak. The weak become strong, just like the devil in the world. To make the big picture clear become a mess. Oh, the high priest, the devil king you mentioned. Is it me? Most certainly. Fan touched his nose, winked innocently and said. Chuckle. Van Hyenko stuffed her mouth and said, ha ha, what do you think? This way. How many people's fate do you ultimately affect? Change occurs. It's hard to believe that a third tribe is about to die.